All right. What up, y'all? This is episode 2 on the Rhinehound podcast, titled as The Berserker. So, as I mentioned in the first episode, we have what I made up, set of guidelines and rules and philosophy, if you will, called the 462 protocol, which I'll be releasing soon. But in the 462 protocol, we have what's called, what I label as the Berserker. Now, the Berserker, it's just trauma, basically. Labeled trauma is the Berserker because if you can put a face and a name and a label on your problem, your trauma, then you can start to really disassociate from the trauma, from the issues that you have with it. So you can recognize the symptoms, if you will. And the symptoms are arguable, whatever they are. They vary from person to person, but here's the thing. Too much trauma left unchecked, or the Berserker left unchecked, if you will, over a long amount of time, you start to go in what's called survival brain, right? And so to define what survival brain is versus learning brain, so learning brain is someone who's had very little trauma, had a fairly decent life. They've had no major stressors growing up primarily. And so the learning brain, or the person with a free of trauma, is able to deal with ambiguity. They're able to learn easily in new situations. They're calm, playful, especially in new situations, and they're able to easily pull back and see the bigger picture of things, you know? They have no problems dealing in group situations. There's no stress there for them, right? So the person who has a lot of trauma, who grew up with a lot of trauma, or has not dealt with their trauma for a long time, like I said, develops what we call survival brain. Now, you can spot someone with survival brain, someone who's been dealing with trauma too long and hasn't successfully dealt with it, by they really hate ambiguity, right? So they really don't like group activities. And that's not to say we're not talking about people who are introverts. We're not necessarily talking about introverts, right? We're talking about people who really get nervous around crowds when they're trying to learn something new, for another example is like, they're always trying to get something done, that one thing done, and they stress about it, and they've got to get it done because they don't like gray area, right? They're hyper focused on threat. That's another thing. Someone who's always walking around looking for threat. These are survival brain issues or trauma that's left unchecked for too long. And the problem with survival brain is that the longer it goes on, the harder it is to correct, right? Not to say that it's not fixable, but people with survival brain, they're just not calm. They can't calm their brain. Now here's the unfortunate part. Survival brain versus learning brain is stronger, right? Because it's just your natural way. It is its natural way. Survival brain is just trying to keep you safe, right? So you grow up in this household or this situation, whether it be continually picked on by kids in a very grotesque and disturbing manner, or you grew up in a household where your father figure or mother figure or caretaker just rather really beat the shit out of you, or psychologically and mentally damaged you continuously over and over throughout your years. And so your survival brain, your berserker that is just trying to protect you, right? And so it's important to know the difference between learning brain and survival brain and how they interact, because, like I said, survival brain will always beat learning brain if you have it. Like I said in the beginning, once we can put a label on our trauma, our survival, then we can start to disassociate ourselves and pull back, recognize the symptoms, recognize stressors. When we're in a situation where someone comes up and pats us on the back and they're just ribbing us jovially, our survival brain goes, motherfucker, shit, kill him, die, threat. But in reality, it's probably just a colleague just really liking you and just jousting with you for fun. I mean, I do that shit all the time when I rib people that I really like. But when you're deep in survival brain, everything's a fucking threat, even when it's not, right? And so that really gets into, see if I can articulate this accurately, into belief. And what a belief is just a thought, right? And it's a reaction to something, and those reactions and those thoughts, when they become repetitive, they begin to change our reality, right? and how we interact with other people and our surroundings around us. Internally, this creates and fires up our reticular activating system, which basically is just our mind's filter. And so with too much survival brain, our mind's filter becomes very distorted into, like we talked about, everything seems like a threat, whether or not it actually is. It doesn't matter. Our berserker, our unchecked berserker, and our survival brain just is trying to keep us safe and is dealing with a lot of internal bullshit that it had to deal with, right? The younger child had to deal with, grew up into an adult that's has all this subconscious shit that's just driving the ship, man. It's just driving your ship. Our reticular activating system sifts through what it believes is most relevant and keeps us alive and safe, as we talked about. So basically, with the 462 protocol, what we do, what I've tried to do, if you will, and it has worked for me for the past year and a half that I've been living it. The 4 pillars, that is, and with the 6 guidelines, it's really helped people like me, myself, and people like me to have structure and an outlet, right? So a structure to rewire and navigate thought patterns, and also an outlet to get the aggression out, right? Because when you've grown up in the path of aggression, you gotta get that shit out somehow, and there's nothing wrong with that. It's just doing it in a healthy way, right? So with like the OD pillar, offense defense pillar, we have martial arts, and so that structures the aggression, right, into a positive way with discipline, but also gets it out as well. Lets us mentally and physically get it out. And then same thing with the string pillar, you know. The string pillar helps us to get physical access energy out, literal physical excess energy that we need to get out of our body. And that's what I call keeping the berserker asleep. Through the 4 pillars, you can just disassociate with that trauma, and you keep that quote unquote berserker, that trauma, at bay and at a very minimum lull, so that with things like the yoga pillar and community, it quiets that berserker mind so that your human mind can progress spiritually, or just fucking progress in general and see the world around you differently. And so, you know, things like also rewiring your mind. So the 4 pillars is to help rewire the mind for people such as myself who are more aggressive. But even if you're not that aggressive, right? Rewiring your survival brain and your subconscious, it's really, it's not simple. I'm not going to make light of it, but it's imperative that you have structure and an outlet to rewire the survival brain. You know, things like positive thoughts versus negative thoughts. It's so fucking simple, and it seems like, yeah, whatever, I got you. The cliche of like just positive affirmation and mantras, it sounds cliche, but once you start doing it and living it and believing it, the cliche becomes deep wisdom, because over time, you start to see what you're doing is you're reprogramming your subconscious, right? And so most people don't even understand on a deep level how fucked up they are in the head, these negative thought patterns that they had. I don't mean to say fucked up, sorry dog. I'm just saying, most people don't understand how deep on a subconscious level that they just talk down to themselves or have really negative thought patterns that keep them stuck in this just fucking traumatic survival brain berserker mode, right? And so like positive thoughts, positive affirmations, meditation, I mean, shit, that stuff really works. Depends on which type of meditation you use, but that's another story. And then even simple things like breath work. 6 deep inhale. 6 of those alone in a row helps you regulate homeostasis so that the dopamine can kick in and start to smooth out your brain, help you to smooth out the resistance, and over time help you to develop and rebuild a higher capacity to take on more stressors, right? And so as we regulate homeostasis, we get back into that calm state of being. And, you know, as we practice this daily and weekly, the things that used to set us off, make us fucking snap on a drop of a dime. Now that we've been regulating our homeostasis and we've been going through positive affirmations, we've been rewiring our subconscious, and we've structured our lives so that we can get out of this survival brain, berserker mode. We're able to take on higher stressors for a longer amount of time with a really good governor, if you will, really good regulatory type of way, right? So as we were saying, like, you're in traffic and some dude cuts you off, a year ago, you would snap the fuck out. You would probably deeply think about rear-ending that motherfucker, pulling him out of the car, beating his fucking teeth in, pissing on him, and flipping the whole world off as you do it. That was a year and a half to 2 years ago. Now that you've been practicing this breath work, this meditation, this structuring, whatever it may look like for you, as long as it's positive, homeboy cuts you off and you just laugh because you know what you would have done, and now you don't even really want to do that anymore. And so it's funny. So, I mean, what we really want to do is get a structure, right? So the 4-6-2 protocol, like I said, is just some shit that works for me. The 4 pillars of ascension, that's some shit that works for me. What I encourage you to do is find something that helps you at least in your weekly life, right? Whether it be waking up to 2 minutes of gratitude mantras or some shit like that, and making sure that you go to the gym at least 2 times a week, enrolling in some type of martial arts or whatever, just picking up fucking stones, heavy stones 2 times a week, something to get out all the excess energy and to also monitor your thoughts, your negative thought patterns, and also reinforce positive thought patterns. So, this quick episode on that. I've been wanting to touch on that a while. I know a lot of people that are really, really struggling with survival brain and berserker mode. And a lot of these people, man, they really look like everyday people. They really look like that is to say, they really look like they got their shit together, right? And then they'll come up and tell me, like, Ryan, this guy was just asked me a question and I found myself flipping the fuck out of them when they were just broadly criticizing me, but they took it as a massive fucking insult, and it's just survival brain. I encourage you to look up survival brain more. See how it really may or may not apply to you. Because, man, the everyday stressors, especially in today's society, man, the everyday stressors, they add up and they compile over the years more than we realize. And they really fucking take over our subconscious. And that subconscious really starts to drive our life and our everyday actions. And some simple steps of just simple breath work and daily, weekly meditation really helps us take control of our life. So that's what I have, guys. I hope any of that helps. I encourage you again to go out and look more about survival brain. If you find yourself snapping a lot, if you find yourself really nervous and like learning things in groups and stuff like that. And the more you know about yourself, the more you can fix the shit, right? And that's just what we're trying to do here in the Ryan Hell Podcast. So thank you for taking the time to listen and watching, and I can't wait to see you guys again. All right? Doses.